Contarte Historias presents Sherlock, Lupin and Me. The Dark Lady by Irene Adler. Illustrations inspired by the work of Henri Toulouse-Lautrec. Chapter 14. A Busy Day. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The boy who had appeared in front of us began. But how lucky. Look at who we have here. To the three little hounds. My friend stopped, the first in front of me, the other 2 steps behind. Don't worry, Lupin murmured. But the way they had arranged themselves in the middle of the street, as if they wanted to protect me, did not make me feel at all calm. A bunch of golfers had laid a full-blown ambush for us. They were hooligans, petty thieves of the port. You could see it by the clothes they wore, the way they shuffled their feet, and the menacing way they moved. I counted them, trying to look at them as little as possible. There were 5 of them. In fact, down an alley further on, towards the port, 2 other criminals had appeared who had joined the gang. Yes, the 3 little methods. The first boy continued to say with a mocking smile. That they don't know how to stay where they should. He spat on the ground and stopped 3 steps away from us. And who are you? Sherlock asked. Who am I? Have you heard? Ask who I am. The hooligan's eyes flashed with an evil light, while his cronies laughed sarcastically. Are you really that interested in knowing who I am? No, Sherlock said glacially. But I'd like to know what you're doing here. What am I doing here? This is my city, said the hooligan, raising his chin defiantly, not yours. Ah, if you say so. Exactly, I'm saying so. And if you want, I'll also tell you about the rumors that have been going around here lately. I'm not a fan of gossip, but if you're excited about it, Sherlock replied, still unfazed. They say that, for a few days now, there have been 3 foreign brats who go around asking too many questions, who go to dangerous beaches. I looked up suddenly. The mysterious hooded figure I saw on the beach. Wouldn't he be more than one of these criminals in disguise? I wondered. Those 3 kids must be really stupid to get into trouble like that. The gang leader continued, prompting another burst of laughter. Did you say stupid? Sherlock replied. Well, then it's not us you're looking for. Goodbye. And he made a gesture to keep walking. But the other jumped like a spring to block his way. Slowly. He exclaimed. There's no rush. And his movement was like a command to the rest of the gang. The other 4 hooligans, too, advanced towards us and surrounded us. I felt Lupin's back tighten against mine, and his voice whispered to me again. Don't worry. Rank it next. Don't look at them. Who do you think you are, Lanky? The head of the little boys asked Sherlock, who was 2 steps ahead of me. I'm not a particularly interesting fellow, he replied coldly. Well, I'm interested in you. The other laughed, taking another step toward us. Me and my friends. I warn you, Sherlock said through clenched teeth, you're making a big mistake. Let us pass. It seems to me, on the other hand, that it is you who is mistaken, you lanky man. The other growled. We've seen you, you know? We know what you were doing. My heart stopped for a moment. What did he mean? To the corpse on the beach, 2 days before? Really? Lupin asked aloud, intervening for the first time. And who told you? Was it Spyro's rascal? The smallest of the hooligans was startled, surprised that anyone knew his name. I didn't even think I could speak, Lupin said mockingly. What about you, Sherlock? Did you know that Spyro could talk? He told me so, but I didn't believe it, Sherlock replied. Two hooligans laughed in spite of themselves, while the one Lupin had called Spirou puffed out his chest in an attempt to hide his embarrassment. Then the chief made an imperative gesture, and there was silence in the alley again. The screeching of seagulls could be heard in the distance. "You'd better be very careful," the leader of the gang went on. "Go back to playing with dolls, take nice walks. That's the way you go. And above all, stop going around asking questions." "Did you hear, Sherlock?" Lupin said with a sly sigh. "No questions." "It's really terrible, my friend," Sherlock said in the same joking tone. "What do we do now?" "Now you turn around and disappear," the Gambero shouted. "And what do you advise us, dolls or a walk?" Lupin replied before bursting into a loud laugh. "I don't think you understand, this is not a joke, kid." The gang's boss growled sullenly. "But it has all the appearance of being it," said Sherlock. "True," Lupin nodded. "A clown that isn't even funny." I turned to look at him, amazed. And so did the hooligan. "What did you say? Who's the clown?" "It's obvious, you and your friends," Lupin replied calmly. "And it pains me to have to confirm it, but you're not even the best," Sherlock echoed. There was a click. Something flashed in the shadows. Now the hooligan had a gleaming knife in his hands. "Perhaps you misunderstood who you have in front of you," he said, planting the knife in Sherlock's nose. "No," he replied impassively, "it's you who didn't understand." And he gave him such a violent hook that he threw him to the ground without him being able to complain. The next few moments seemed to last forever. Little Spirou and another hooligan lunged at Lupin, who knocked them down, one with a punch and the other with a trip executed with feline swiftness. Sherlock, taking advantage of the fact that the chief was stunned, kicked him in the hand and the knife flew away and fell away. He then walked up to the two remaining hooligans and challenged them with raised fists. Out of the corner of my eye I saw his boss, now recovered from Sherlock's punch, trying to throw himself at his legs. "You, go to sleep," I yelled at him, kicking him. He collapsed again without uttering a wail. "Now let's go," Lupin said. From the looks of it, Spirou's scoundrel had come out on his legs and Lupin was fighting only one opponent. I watched Sherlock. He was facing the two hooligans like a professional boxer. With his guard up and his legs slightly apart, he shifted his weight from one to the other and dodged blows with agility. Or at least he tried. When I saw him take a vigorous uppercut, I had to close my eyes. "Irene," Lupin called to me after he had gotten rid of his opponent with a quick 1-2. He grabbed me by the arm and led me to the mouth of an alley. "But Sherlock," I stammered, turning to our friend, who was still fighting. "He'll manage perfectly well on his own," Lupin said, laughing and pulling at me. But I let go of him. For a moment it had seemed to me that the two criminals had the upper hand. "Sherlock," I repeated. Instinctively, I wanted to run to him. That's how I became aware of the approaching carriage. The coachman pulled the reins to the horses, and I passed within a short distance of their hoofs. I turned to look at the carriage. The coachman had stood on the davit and was raising his fist towards us. Behind the glass I glimpsed an elegant and sad female face. It seemed to me that he looked at me as if he felt sorry for me. But it was only an instant. When I looked back at Sherlock, I realized I had been wrong. One of the rascals had already fled, and the other was taking my friend's blows. Lupin came to me. What was he saying? "Come on, let's go now." This time I listened to him and we started running as fast as we could through the alleys of St. Malo. Lupin held my hand firmly and guided me corner after corner, confidently, never slowing down. "What are you laughing at?" I asked the first time we stopped for air. I felt my heart explode and I felt a great warmth in my chest. "Well," he said, barely japing, "it's been fun." "Fun? That a bunch of thugs threaten us with a knife? Bullies? Those? That's what they want," he bragged. "Have you seen how we've settled the scores for them?" "Yes, but Sherlock, we've left him alone. It was more important to get you out of there. I know how to take care of myself perfectly." "I think our friend has noticed," he laughed again. "And the mark of your boot on his cheek will remind him of this encounter for a long time." I pressed myself against him on the spur of the moment. "Lupin?" "What?" he asked. But he was looking at me and not at the street. He looked at me with those deep, shining eyes of his. I grabbed his chin and turned it around. I held it to him until he had no choice but to see the 3 new rascals coming towards us. "Where do these come from?" he asked. "I don't know, sir, I take care of everything." "What do we do now?" We backed off. "Until you end up with your back against the wall." The 3 of them advanced arrogantly, occupying the entire sun-drenched street. I don't know why, but I had always imagined that certain things happened only at night, and only in a certain kind of literature, like that of Mr. Robert Louis Stevenson, and that only at night could there be those deserted alleys, perfect for confinements. When it became clear that there was no other choice, Lupin let go of my hand and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of it." And he came between them and me. On that occasion, his fighting technique amazed me. He shrugged his shoulders, raised his arms and attacked his opponents, screaming like a madman. I guess it was to try to scare them. And for a moment it seemed to work. The 3 of them stood up and exchanged puzzled glances. Then they went on the run, more spirited than before. Then I saw that Lupin stepped back, undecided about how to deal with them. 3 against 1. He's not spared this time, I thought. But, instead, a black shadow fell from the backs of the hooligans, sudden as the waterspout of a flood. He grabbed 2 of them and shook them, slamming them against one wall and another in the alley. The 3rd was so astonished at this new attack that for a moment he did not know where to look, Lupin or the newcomer. "Mr. Nelson!" I exclaimed, feeling as if I were in a dream. I ran towards him and Lupin, who, in the meantime, had fallen out with the last of the hooligans. He was a muscular boy who knew how to fight. He and Lupin responded to each other's blows. After jumping back to dodge a punch, Lupin found himself next to me and quickly turned to look at me. His face was tense, with the gesture of combat, but for a moment he dissolved into a smile. "Go away, come on," he said with a wink. And then he put the front face back together. I didn't have time to stop him. Mr. Nelson had knelt in front of me, as if I were still a child, and was looking me in the eye. "Is everything all right, Miss Irene?" he asked. I nodded, looking at him. Where had it come from? How had he found out? He took me by the hand, we jumped over the 2 hooligans he had struck down like a cyclone and forced me away from the alley. "Mr. Nelson," I stammered. "What about my friends?" I could see his shoulders going up and down in front of me. "Oh, don't worry, Miss Irene. From what I've seen, I think they'll do very well on there." What did you think of this Sherlock, Lupin and Irene Adler audiobook? Did you like the ending? Who was your favorite character? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to our channel to not miss the next chapter. The mystery continues.